Hey everyone, welcome to The Bark Knight. This is your host Patrick, and for this episode I have with me here Meka G from Cinematic Nightmares.
How you doing?
So we decided to sit down today to talk a little bit about the recent movie Sinners that came out, and Meka has seen it 4 times now, and I myself have seen it twice. And we've both done a bunch of our own videos on the topic, ton of active things on Threads and other social medias. So check her out on there. She's got a ton of content out there about the movie. But yeah, we wanted to just sit down and chat with each other about it. So Meka, I've got a couple questions I wanted to start off with here to just kind of help people get to know you a little better.
Okay, I'm ready. Let's do this.
All right. So, first off, I wanted to ask you what your 4 favorite horror movies are.
4 favorite horror movies. Okay, I'll go with Candyman, 1992. Not that spiritual, whatever. I will say Fright Night, the original, because for some reason remakes even though that Fright Night remake was good. I'll go with People Under the Stairs.
All right.
And then finally, it's a tie between like Jason X and
Jason X.
Jason X and Friday the 13th remake.
All right. So the what is it, 2009 one?
Mm-hmm. And I'm pretty sure like in a couple of months that'll all change because I'll go and rewatch something and be like, oh, this is my favorite now.
That's awesome. Yeah, I have the I'm looking at it right now. The Friday the 13th, like the Arrow video 4K that they released with like it's got a really cool case on it and a poster and everything.
Nice.
They just actually did a new version of that I think they're taking pre-orders for right now for Jason X, so you should check that out.
You don't say.
It's got a really, really cool cover on it, so I would highly recommend checking that one out.
Yeah, a lot of people didn't like Jason X. I was like, it was a fun, good time.
I saw Jason X at the theater as a kid, I remember.
I remember seeing it at the theater. That's crazy.
Yeah, well, that's good. So that helps people sort of get a little bit of a vibe check for what your interests are, where you're coming from with all this. So, first question about the movie itself. So, how would you describe the genre of this film? There's been a lot of sort of conversations going around about that topic. There's multiple genres to it, but how would you describe it?
So, I would probably best describe it as Southern Gothic / folk horror. Southern Gothic because it focuses more on like the South and the atmosphere during that time, like and the stories that were being told about these haints and just the spiritual side of it, and then the folk part of it leaning over into also the stories that were being told about the spirits and how they use music to not only bring good but also to bring evil into to you. So for me it's more Southern Gothic / folk horror versus just a pure vampire movie, because it's not just a vampire movie, it's more than that.
Yeah, it's much more. One of the things that I saw out there a lot is Ryan Coogler calling it genre fluid. I really like that. Yes,
I have to agree with that, because you can't put a genre on it really, but I said that because I was like, that's the vibes I got from it.
Right, and that's kind of what he said along with that. It's like it is whatever the viewer takes from it. There's a lot going on with it, and he doesn't want to define it because he wants the viewer to define it for themselves. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
It's really interesting the way he did that. So I had thought about this too, and I would kind of go for myself towards an American Gothic horror opera almost.
Yeah, because of the music. Yes.
Yeah. The one thing I notice is the music really leads the entire movie along.
Yes.
There's very few scenes where there are scenes where there's like no sound whatsoever, where the music stops and everything's quiet, but it's very, very few. The music really, really leads the whole thing through, and I really think it's only a matter of time till somebody does a musical version of this. You know what I mean?
Oh, it's coming to Broadway. We already know it is. It's going to tour and everything. Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be right in the front row.
I will be too. Okay, so one thing that stood out to me is that this film itself and the reception to it remind me a lot of Kendrick Lamar's GNX release. And there's also sort of some parallels to the song Reincarnated and it dealing with sort of blues musicians as well. I know you spent a lot of time on Thread, so you probably saw that when that album released, it was literally everywhere, everybody talking about it. So how do you feel about that comparison?
I think it is. I think that's a great comparison because the reason why Kendrick Lamar's album did what it did the numbers that it did, is because of word of mouth. I remember when people were getting the early screening of Seeing Sinners, and they were like hyping this movie up. I honestly have not, even with the early people getting to see it, I didn't see not one bad review about this movie. And that typically, if you have sometimes when the movie comes out early, you'll have people that's on both sides of the fence. Yeah. This movie everybody was on one side of the fence. And once it starts rolling, it starts going. And the more people kept seeing it, the more, if I log in my Threads right now, all I see is Sinners all the way down.
It'll be like 12 posts about Sinners, and then one post about something else, and then another 12.
Right. So that's a great comparison to Kendrick Lamar's album dropping, because Sinners before that wasn't. There was the previews for it, but people wasn't talking about it until they went and saw it.
Yeah, and the word of mouth for it has been absolutely insane. Did you see that they released the box office numbers for Monday? Did you see what those are?
I haven't seen them yet.
So it made $7.8 million on Monday.
On a Monday?
On a Monday.
I mean, I was part of that 7.8 million, but I'm just saying.
You were part of that.
On a Monday?
I was in the theater still at, between 12 a.m. and 12:20 a.m. But yeah, those are crazy numbers, and that's actually it's the second best Monday for an R-rated horror movie at the box office.
That's impressive, but that's just because a lot of people weren't able to see it on the weekend, right? Work, kids,
holiday,
whatever the case may be. Had other obligations, and so when you finally get that Monday off, or you get your kids in school and you're like, I'm taking Monday off to go see this movie. That speaks volumes about this movie. That was based off word of mouth alone. Yeah.
And because it was a holiday, I think that there's a good chance that it does even better this coming weekend. That is an extremely rare thing to happen, but I think it's very possible that it does do it.
Yeah, that was an interesting. To me, that was interesting that Sinners dropped the weekend of Easter.
Yeah.
So that was. I don't know if that was intentional or if it was, we didn't know type thing, but
yeah, it was an interesting choice because it may have been simply due to the schedule of the other movies. That's really the only reason I can think of why they would have dropped it there, because there's nothing else released last weekend that, and it's a couple weekends into Minecraft's release, which is also Warner Brothers, so they probably wanted to give that enough space, But yeah, that's interesting.
I saw both movies over the weekend, so
you saw Minecraft?
My money, Warner Brothers. Yes, I saw that one too. Nice. Y'all got my money.
Yeah, I was reading an article about Michael DeLuca and Pam Abdi, who are the Warner Brothers executives that released both of those. And they've had a string of misses, so these two movies probably saved their careers. at Warner Brothers anyways. They've been around for a while, so they'll be fine. But
They should be okay.
okay, so I want to get your take on this. So, final scene of the movie. Obviously, everybody, we're talking spoilers here, so yeah, deal with it. Post-credits scene, the final one. How do you interpret that? You've seen it. I'd imagine you stayed all 4 times for it, but maybe you didn't. But how do you interpret
I only stayed
that
the once. So are we talking about the club
The
scene,
final
or are we talking
one.
about the very final scene?
Very, very final, where he's in the church playing guitar.
I think I interpreted that as at one point he's probably trying to prove to his dad that, like, I could do both.
Yeah.
Right? I can be in the juke joint, but I could still play, for the church as well too. And then there was that, and then I also thought, like, maybe this is an alternate universe where he never went to the juke joint. His dad was like, what's more important than serving in the house of the Lord? And he probably was like, yeah, you know what, you're right. But then I was like, the more I thought about it, I was like, it had to be one of those things where this is probably before him and his dad had a conversation about him going to the juke joint, and he was just playing for him, like, I want you to hear me, and understand that my music carries in both areas, at the juke joint and in church.
Yeah. So I had listened to the soundtrack, and there is a song on it where his father and him are like playing that song together. So I don't know if that's going to end up like a deleted scene or what, but I was kind of wondering about that when I listened to it on the not the score, but like the official playlist, I think it was. Yeah. And so you hear them two talking to each other before he plays it. So I wasn't sure if that tied into that at all. But I had kind of read it as more of like at the end in the mid-credits scene when Stack is talking to him, and he he offers to let him live on forever, and he's like, no, I've seen enough of this world. And he like smells the area around him, and he's like, you're not far off now. And so I was kind of reading that as like maybe that night he passes away, and that final scene is his spirit like up in heaven, because he's yes, the church is always white, and bright like that in every scene they show it in, but still it looks a lot like where you would imagine Annie's character being when she's all dressed in white and everything, and so I was kind of reading it like that, and I think he left it really ambiguous like that on purpose so that everybody can sort of take their own idea of what they think is going on there. Yeah. But it's almost like to me, like he's at peace now,
And he would be the younger the younger version of himself, because that's when, obviously before all heck broke loose. Yeah. That was his moment of happiness.
Yeah. When he's around his family, when he's got the church there, when he's got all of his friends for, that period of time, and then he goes off and he does his own thing. But that was like his, probably when things were most peaceful in his life for that short period of time.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Ryan Coogler, you think you slick.
Yeah, he's really done a lot with this movie, where I think, that's how I'm reading it right now, and a couple viewings from now, who knows how it reads, I think this is just going to be one of those movies where the more you watch it, it's like The Thing with me, John Carpenter's The Thing, like every time you watch it, you pick up on different things, and you read situations different ways, and or you're paying attention to things that you weren't paying attention to the other time,
That was me. Every time after the first time, I was like, okay, I spotted something new, or I noticed something, and I was like, man, like, first watch, you're not gonna catch it. Second watch, you're like, wait a minute. And then there were multiple things that I was just like, wait a minute, that's not right.
That's actually a great transition to the question that I had here. So you've seen it 4 times now, so I have 2 questions on that. The first, are you going to see it again at the theater?
No. No, no.
Okay.
Don't get me wrong. I love it. I love the movie, but like that beginning scene where you kind of I already know everything. I know all the character development. I'm like, bring on the vampires.
So there's no number 5 at the movie theater for you yet?
To be determined.
Okay.
To be determined.
So what did you notice by your fourth rewatch? Because by this point, you've realized a lot of the nuanced details that are going on, and you're leaning more into like deeper understanding, than most viewers. So by that fourth rewatch, what are some of the things you noticed?
So the one thing I did notice, and actually I was talking to a friend of mine about it as well too, was the fact that the juke joint was locked up when the clan showed up.
Oh yeah.
And there's a reason why the juke joint is locked. It's because Stack and Mary are inside. Because even though Mary ran off, Smoke let Stack go, right? But this is once again Smoke protecting his brother. He didn't want the clan to get inside of the juke joint because one, they would have tried to kill Stack. They would have been unsuccessful. But Smoke also didn't want the son to take out his brother. And so right. I think what happened is that Stack went and got Mary. They locked themselves inside of the juke joint because even though the man owned the sawmill, why wasn't he able to get in? Because right. It was locked from the inside, right? So when the first time I saw it, I was like, why didn't Smoke just burn it down and then take him out? But then the second time I watched it, and after I had a conversation with my friend, I was like, that makes sense to save his brother.
I can get behind that. I had kind of wondered. Like, well, where did they go off to? Because there's zero time at the end there between all the chaos for them to get anywhere. So I think that makes complete sense, and I can get behind that. But I hadn't thought of that.
So I didn't think about it either until I had a conversation with him. It was his first time watching it. It was my second time seeing it. So when I went back the third time and I actually saw it, I was like, that does make sense. Because not one door was locked, both doors were locked. Yeah. But when we first get introduced to the Grand Wizard, he opened the door.
Right.
So it was like, for me, that was the one thing. And then, and my friend said, I mentioned this on another show I was on last night. I was like, he's like, now you just being nitpicky. I was like, I ain't being nitpicky. I noticed it. I'm sorry. But the scene when Mary came back from when she got turned, everybody else who got somewhat bit on the back or whatever, they always had a blood stain on their back, right? She got bit on the back. And I said, if she had her shawl like up here on her shoulders, we would have never known, right? But because she had it around her shoulders, that's when I was like, I started looking, I was like, where's the blood? Because if she had a bite here, it would have soaked through her dress and been all the way down the back of her dress. Now, if you have your shawl up here, nobody notices it. Like, even Stack wouldn't have noticed it.
Right.
And then somebody was like, oh, well, vampires can use their saliva to clean up blood. And I was like, where did you hear that?
I've never heard that before.
I've never heard that before. So that was just another, again, it's not me. I was not trying to be nitpicky, but I was just like, wouldn't she have it would have made like more sense if like her bite was like on her leg or something like that, right. and not here up on the, up on her back, because then she would have been like Bo. Like Bo got bit on the back. He had a blood stain where, yeah. On his back. So not trying to be nitpicky, but it was just something else I noticed. And I noticed it the second time, and I was just like, and then so every time I saw it after that, I was just like, no blood.
Yeah. So you, by that point, you've seen it enough times to start to notice little goofs.
Yeah.
So let me know if you noticed this, because I saw a video earlier that was detailing how in the Mississippi Delta during this era there were a lot of Chinese immigrants that owned shops just like this. So I didn't realize this either time I watched it, what was going on, because the first time it's unfolding in a way that you're just not tracking all of this. The second time, and this is, I'm speaking specifically about when the daughter leaves the one store and goes to the other store. And that time, I'm focused solely on the fact that I'm focused on the camera work, actually. And like, you know, it's second viewing. I'm watching for continuous shots and things like that, and I'm focused on that. So I'm not even thinking about this. But the reason that there are two stores right there is because there's an all black store and an all white store, and I hadn't even picked up that. And apparently, that's like a very common thing in that era, and also very common that they're owned by Chinese immigrants. And so it seems like you did notice that, right?
I noticed it on the second watch. So like the first watch, I was, first watch, you're just like, oh my God, I'm here. The second time around, I was like I watched her as she walked, and I was like, that's strange. She went from, the black side of the street to the white side of the street. Wait a minute. They own both stores. That's wild. But it just goes to show that during that time, Chinese immigrants could be in both sides of, that town, and it's almost the same now too. You're gonna find, Asian marketplaces in the black community and in outside the black community as well too, because they're accepted in both. During that time, they were, well, especially back then, they were accepted in both spaces, and it was like nobody was really going after them. I don't think. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know, but I noticed it. I noticed that when she walked across the street, I was like, they own both stores.
Yeah. I think those are those sort of like rich details that you start to notice the more times you see this, because each time you watch it, you're focused on different things, Like the first time I watched it, I was focused on the story that was unfolding. The second time I watched it, I was focused on the cinematography that's happening and just how beautiful it is in that street in the when you do a continuous shot like that where you're following somebody, which they do a couple of those and they're all really nice, but you're focused on like all these people had to coordinate for this big guy with a mustache to walk towards the camera right here and this to be happening over here, and the coordination behind that's what I was focused on. And then the next time you watch it, you're like, wait a second, so I think it's more and more of these details are going to kind of come out of it as people see it more and more times, and they're focused on different parts of the film with those. What do you think of the sort of impact this noticing details like that are going to have on different people as they watch this, especially like young people who may not be aware of a lot of these nuances of the South during this era?
I think Ryan Coogler is smart in how he did this movie, because it not only is it's not only just a horror movie, it's also a lesson. Right. It's a history lesson, right? It allows, I feel like this movie, the impact of this movie will allow for the younger generation to understand, like, this is how it was. Like, I was in the movie theater and this is the third time I saw it. There was a young lady that was sitting in front of me, and she was like, why don't they have on any shoes? They're outside in the cotton field picking cotton, and she's asking why they don't have on shoes. Like, for someone like her, she doesn't understand that even though slavery was technically over, sharecroppers still did not have shoes. They were still in the field picking cotton barefooted. And this movie for me is not just like I said, not just a horror movie, not just a vampire movie. It's a history lesson.
Right. Well, what's interesting about that too is the idea that the two brothers slowly start to realize by the end of the movie that this juke joint business that they've brought here may not be successful, right? because there's no generational wealth that's been accumulated in this area. There's not wealth that's been accumulated. You know, you're accepting plantation credits for these drinks in many cases. So, you know, these people can't afford to buy shoes for themselves. How are they going to, you know, afford to be doing parties like this on a continual basis? And they start to sort of come to terms with that too.
Right. In the scene where, you know, Smoke is showing him like, here's the numbers. Like, the top is plantation money. And, you know, Stat got happy for a minute. He was like, oh, we about to be paid. And he was like, nah, like, the bottom one is the cash.
Yeah.
And his face slowly was like the realization that they weren't making any money off that juke joint.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really interesting. Did you notice any other sort of like historical details like any of this that I might have missed?
I like the fact that they did not demonize Hoodoo. And, you know, the you know, Annie's character and how she did, you know, she had the mojo bags and, you know, she was selling, you know, basically magical, you know, not gifts, but, you know, things to, you know, the little girls and things like that. I like the fact that they didn't demonize it. Like,
right.
They empowered it, because if Annie wasn't there, they wouldn't have known. And, you know, she was knowledgeable, and you know, that's also a part of history too. Like, just learning, like, this is what, you know, Black people used to, you know, they believed in the spirits. They believed that, you know, they could conjure the spirits. They could, you know, get rid of the spirits, like how to get rid of the spirits. Like, that's also a part of it too. So I think, you know, again, shout out to Ryan Coogler for, one, doing his research, and two, executing it perfectly.
Yeah, and really establishing her character to be such a rich character. And one of the things I thought was really interesting about that is that, like, he's the sole writer on this. So especially for that character, that's him and her, essentially, that built that character up. I'd imagine she was very involved in the development of that character. But, you know, it's not a whole writer's room full of people. It's just, you know, the writer and the star working together.
Yeah. Like I said, kudos to him for everything. Like, it wasn't just on, you know, for the Black actors. It was also for the Indians. It was also for the Asian community. Like, he paid attention. Like, I think I saw an interview on Instagram where it showed, like, he went and, you know, talked to people about, you know, about during that time, you know, a lot of historians about, so he could get it accurately right.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't just, oh, you know how sometimes you watch a historical movie and you're like, that's not how it happened.
Yeah.
Like, you can tell he put in the work for this.
Yeah, definitely 100%. Okay, so I think this movie has a good chance of getting some Oscars love. So, if going into the ceremony, if you could guarantee one Oscar to go to this movie, to any of the cast, crew, any of it, you get to guarantee at least one Oscar going in. Where do you put that Oscar?
Can we just give the best picture? So just give it best picture.
100%, you can do that.
Just give it best picture. Like, top shelf.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, definitely best picture. And then if I have to give an Oscar to one of the actors, definitely Michael B. Jordan.
Yeah.
Like, how do you? I mean, I'm gonna say how, because it's been. I mean, obviously it's been done before. People have played twins before, but for him to create two different characters, two completely different characters that were like night and day. Michael B. Jordan deserves all the flowers. He deserves all the awards.
Yeah, I agree.
Like, just hand him the Oscar now.
This is probably the best example of somebody doing that, maybe ever, because you completely forget about it. You know, you become ingrained in the story and his acting and everything to the point where you're not even thinking about those things. All right, final question. So, what do you think about the news that Ryan Coogler is now going to be rebooting the X-Files?
I'm hoping that it doesn't end up being like Jordan Peele when he rebooted the Twilight Zone.
Oh, yeah, I watched a couple episodes of that, and I was like, nah, I'm good.
Yeah, that's my only hope is that we don't get a repeat of what Jordan Peele did with the Twilight Zone.
Right.
Like there were some episodes that were good, but then there were some that was like, you could have kept that in the can.
Yeah, this ain't it.
Right, this ain't it. So I think if again, how does Ryan Coogler top himself? You better give us the best X-Files ever.
Right. What would you want to see out of that?
I would love to see the episode that was originally supposed to be made but ended up being Final Destination.
Oh yeah,
I would love to see that episode.
yeah.
If
That
Ryan
would be
Coogler
awesome
can get
to
his
see.
hands on it, do it.
Yeah, yeah. I just want to see Monster of the Week. You know, they kept rebooting the series with the same actors, and then focusing on the conspiracy stuff. It's like, no, that's not what we want. We want Monster of the Week. You know, those are the best episodes of those first, I think it's like the first 5 seasons are primarily that, The first 2 seasons are all that,
Right.
But I include the other
right.
ones because there's some damn good episodes in those.
I think Ryan Coogler has a chance. I think he has a chance to do it. Like if he has the right writers, and he's not writing it by himself, like he gets the right people on board. He's doing episodes, right? Or is he just doing a movie?
I think he's doing episodes.
Okay, let's not have a repeat of what Jordan Peele did with the Twilight Zone.
Yes,
That's
I
why
agree.
we never got any more of the Twilight Zone.
Okay, so I actually have one last thing here. That was the last one for Sinners, but I wanted to get your take on the trailer for I Know What You Did Last Summer, the reboot released today. I know you watched it, so I want to get your thoughts on that.
You mean the Requel? The Requel?
Yes.
I feel like whoever is directing or whoever's directing I Know What You Did Last Summer saw Scream 5 and was like, I can do that.
Right.
And so as I was watching the trailer, I was like, okay, wait a minute. This is a requel. Like how's the same thing happen? Like, oh, there was an accident, somebody died, and now somebody's coming after us. And then, Fred from Scooby-Doo shows up and it's like, there's been violence like this here before. And it's like,
this isn't the first time
okay,
this
Dewey.
has happened.
So, am I excited for it? No. I'm not excited for it because it feels too much like Scream. Like even with the turn with the reveal of Julie, like, what did you do last summer?
Yeah, that line, I was just like, oh my God, who wrote that?
And like I told my friend earlier, because we was discussing it, I said,
Just tell me
I said,
this.
the only way this works is if one of the kids that killed whoever is Julie's daughter. That's the only way this works.
Right.
But we
Yeah,
already know it's not it's not Julie's daughter.
It's not, and I don't think it's going to work. I think it's going to be like a just middle of the road slasher, right? It'll probably. I don't think it'll be as good as either of the old ones. I think I Still Know What You Did Last Summer is a little underrated, but it is a step down from the first one.
Yeah.
And I don't think this will even hit that, but it'll be something to do. I don't know. I have no idea if I might go see it at the theater just because of the podcast. That's probably the only reason they'll get my money.
I don't blame you. Just the trailer. I've seen people on threads are like, "Oh, I'm so excited about this movie," and I'm like, "For what?"
Well, Sarah Michelle Gellar even
Jennifer
said
Love
no to
Hewitt?
it. They tried to bring her back, and she was like, "No."
Well, I saw that too, and she was like, "Isn't my character dead?" And I was like, See, y'all trying to pull a Scream because that's how they brought back Kirby. I was like, Kirby died, y'all.
Yeah, I was kind of happy when they brought back though. I always liked that character. But that's all they're doing with this new one. It's they're bringing everybody back for the next one, 7.
Yeah, I saw that too. It's like, why don't we bring back the ketchup as well too?
Sydney's mom is the killer.
Listen, I was never dead. I orchestrated this whole thing. What?
So she could run away with Billy Loomis's mom. Or dad.
Dad.
Maybe mom, I don't know.
Hey, she might have. She was, according to Billy, she was
Billy
known
Loomis's mom got killed in the second one, actually.
That's right. Are they bringing her back too?
I hope not. Wouldn't that be something, though? I feel like we're not far off from Timothy Olyphant getting announced.
I'm pretty sure that's coming next. I'm pretty sure. Did they bring back Cotton Weary?
No, I don't think so.
Don't bring back none of the cast from 3. None of them.
Yeah, I will definitely be watching that one, though. Just, I got a lot of theories about what's going on, so I'll probably do a whole episode on that one.
I think I'll go see it, but I'm not going to go see I Know What You Did Last Summer. And, I mean, you even named the Requel after the first movie. So,
yep.
It's giving Scream.
They did the thing. All right, well, that's all I got. So thank you for coming on here with me. I really appreciate it.
I had a ball.
And thank you, everybody who joined in to watch. You can catch Meka G over at Cinematic Nightmares. She does a lot of her own horror movie videos over there. And so please check her out, and you can catch me at Bark Night Podcast.